Hello everyone, welcome back to the Shintaro Higashi show with Peter Yu. Today we're going to talk a little bit about my BJJ journey and what I've learned.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Shintaro's also done BJJ, and then he's actually a brown belt.
Brown Belch.
Brown belts, that's right. So, and he's met a lot of interesting people, especially because he was going through the New York City BJJ circuit.
Yeah,
And,
New York City
yeah.
BJJ is pumping.
So he has cool stories, and then we're gonna kind of quickly go over them, and then later we're gonna talk about what he learned, from his BJJ experience. So let's start from the beginning. So how did you even get into BJJ? Like what motivated you as a judo guy?
So I knew a guy in my neighborhood right around my parents' house.
Right.
Right, he used to do BJJ and he invited me. He's like, hey, I'm doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I know you do Judo. And this is like probably when I was 20. So probably like 15 years ago. So it was
Like
a
when you're
different
in
world
college.
probably, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like home from college. I was in Westchester.
Right.
And then my friend's like, hey, I've been going to Jojo Goran school,
Yeah.
ECU, East Coast United. And he's like, why don't you come on by? So I decided to go with my friend, and there was a very warm welcome. And I was very surprised to see everyone started on their feet.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, this is like judo. It's almost the same
Right.
thing, right? I didn't even know what it really was before,
Right. Because back
I
then
just
it
knew
was,
that they did
yeah.
Newaza. I just knew
Yeah.
that they were good at Newaza.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, my Newaza was not good at all. I've neglected it. I just never liked groundwork.
Right.
I'm like a stand-up person. I like stand-up.
Yeah.
So I went.
How you put on like your judo gi and then just went with them? Like how did they receive you?
Yeah, I went. I brought my judo gi. I brought my judo black belt. And they were like, hey, welcome. Come on in. And
Right,
you
right.
want to work out? And it was pretty great.
Nice.
Yeah, and then they all started on their feet, so I started on my feet, and we did some judo, and then we did some newaza, and it felt very, very familiar.
Right. And then did you consistently go that summer or?
Yeah, so I went, and then I was so impressed by Jojo Goran's jiu-jitsu, right? His newaza was unbelievable.
Right,
He kept
right.
doing this arm drag, and he was so slick with it, and the way he attacked multiple attacks, right? I wasn't used to that.
Right.
Triangle choke armbar. And it was like, oh shoot, which do I defend? And I haven't really felt that before. Of course, this is me with zero BJJ experience going with the BJJ black belt.
Right.
I was running a school at the time. I was very impressed. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go. And then next class I brought my white belt. I brought a white belt.
Nice. Just
Yeah.
as a student.
As a student,
Although
it was
art,
really
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
And the people who weren't there the first time, they were all so nice to me, and they assumed that I was a white belt. And we were doing I remember we were doing single legs, and I was
Right.
wrestling in college at the time.
Right.
And there was a guy. He was like, "Oh man, let me show you how to do a single leg," and he was like showing me, and he was super nice and super like excited to show me. So I was just like, "All right." And then I let him teach me a single leg. And he's like, give it a shot, man. And I was trying it. And of course, my single leg is great. I'm wrestling in college.
Right.
And he's like, good job. But, your hand should be like this. And I was like, all right. And it was kind of nice really just being a full-blown student.
Right. So you kept true to your, the dojo etiquette we talked about. You were
yeah.
Being a
And,
student.
after he found out all this stuff that I was a judo black belt and I wrestled in college, he was like, man, why didn't you tell me? And it was like a funny thing. We became good friends.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So it was like a summer thing for you when you're home. You would just kind of go stop by and then train a little here.
So I went in, walked
Yeah.
in as a judo black belt, and then I walked the next day in as a white belt, and it was like the next day or the day after or something like that the
Right.
instructor said, hey, you know what? We're going to start you off at blue.
Right.
And that was my first
Blue belt.
blue belt. Yep.
Yeah. Nice.
And then I went for the summer. I was back home from the summer, and then I was going to college in Manhattan. So
Right.
when I went back to college, it's like now I couldn't go train, there because it was in Westchester.
Right. Westchester is the suburbs of New York City. Manhattan.
Yeah, it's probably like 30, 40 minutes north.
Yeah.
And between judo and wrestling in college, it's like I couldn't fit in jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Even if I wanted to, I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Right? Morning lift, wrestling practice, then judo practice. And
I see.
where do you train jiu-jitsu? I couldn't do it.
So then, so you kind of, that was put on hiatus a little bit, and then
hiatus, a couple years went by, and then I took the summer to go to Gracie's because my friend Harry St. Leger, who's out in right with the Jacksonville in Arizona, he was training there. He was like, "Why don't you come on by?" And I started developing a relationship with Brian Glick and those guys because I was doing seminars, judo seminars at BJJ schools.
I see.
Yeah, so I was kind of getting familiar with them, and they kept inviting me. So I went, and I spent the summer training in the blue basement with John Danaher, and he gave me my purple belt.
Oh, so you're a Danaher purple belt. Nice.
Yeah.
So wait, so that was like a summer after college? Like just one summer after college, or is it?
That was probably somewhere around there. I think it was a summer where it was like I was still in college, maybe. So it was probably like 3 years after I had that first experience for the summer.
Right. I see.
So BJJ was kind of like a summer thing for me because I wasn't really wrestling in the summer.
Right. It was just
right?
judo.
There's no summer. Yeah, in the fall you start your preseason.
Right.
You wrestle. Season ends in April or March, and then you spend 2 or 3 months kind of still obsessing over it. Oh god damn it! I didn't in conferences or something. You're still training, and then in the summer it just kind of fizzles out for me wrestling.
So it's like a BJJ kind of replaced wrestling in a way in your grappling
a little bit
training.
For the summer, in that time period.
Yeah.
So now I have a purple belt, and I feel a little bit more confident about my Newaza.
So I know Danaher is like a legendary figure in the BJJ community. Yeah. So how was your experience like with him? Like I know he's known for his pedagogical like style and his death squad. I was actually so blown away because he wanted to have conversations about judo with me. And he was saying, "Hey, did you see this match with this guy when he did this Koji-gari?" And I was like, "What? How is he so familiar with judo?" And he was saying stuff about judo that I haven't even heard. He was like, "This guy, that guy," and I'm like, "Oh my god, I haven't even watched that or heard that." And I was blown away by. Right, and then there was a little office in the back where sometimes I would go in early just to hang out with Harry and talk to Brian Glick, and I would see him in the little office watching videos, like judo videos, and studying it and watching matches. And I was like, wow, this guy really is a student of the arts. He's a true scholar.
Yeah, and the way he taught was amazing too, because he's very verbose. Right, my father didn't really teach; he's like do. Right, and then he would give some feedback, but a lot of it is figure it out yourself, kind of a methodology. So he was very, very explicit in the way he taught, like do this with your hands, do that with your hands, and I was very impressed by that.
I see. So
it's harder to do that for judo, I think,
right?
Because balance is important and coordination is very important. If you don't have the coordination and balance, you just can't do it.
Right.
But if you're on the ground, it's like put your hand here. Anyone could put their hand there. Right. Take the hand off like this. It's like, okay, like that. And then when you see the tension across the sleeve in this way, you've done something right. Like, yeah, I could definitely see that. As opposed to judo, it's like stand on one leg, pick him up on your back. It's like if you can't balance him there, you can't do it.
That's an interesting part. We can talk more about the kind of your experience in BJJ and then in contrast to your judo experience. But it seems like because judo is a standing game mostly, it's more intuitive than cerebral. Like BJJ, I think you can approach it as like a cerebral art.
Yeah, I think the speed in which it's practiced and the intensity in which it's practiced changes that. Right, and we're gonna get into that a little bit too. So because when things are a little bit slower, you could actually break down and analyze and see all the different options and see all the different methodologies and. As opposed to judo, is just fast, boom, boom, boom. It's like, what happened? It's like, I don't know what happened. The guy just grabbed him and threw him. Right? But a lot of the stuff that actually happens is you can't see it. You need the lens to be able to understand what's going on.
All right, so Danaher, did he have a team then, like the whole death squad thing, like his prodigies?
That wasn't really a thing.
Okay.
I know Brian Glick was in the room and he was incredible. And there were great people in there. I remember Gracies being in the room and subbing everybody, and all that stuff. There were great athletes in there. I think this is pre-death squad. I see. So it's like Danaher was just starting out his whole school thing.
And
I've been back since that summer, here and there, right? Gary was going and I would go, and I spent a couple weeks going to the comp class because I had time on Tuesday morning at 10, things like that. And, every time I go, I got something out of it. And I would always try to show whatever I knew if someone asked.
Nice.
That's etiquette too. I'm not going around like, hey, let me show you my tayo, Not doing that. But if someone wanted to learn it, like, I'm more than happy to show what I know.
Wearing your purple belt. Yeah.
Wearing my purple belt. And, I visited Marcelo's, right? Because
Marcelo's too, yeah.
Bernardo Faria was coming to my dojo to train judo.
All right, because
this is more recent. I'm jumping ahead a couple of years because he was last world championship thing, and he's like, I want to work on my stand-up game. So he was coming to my dojo for 6 months to a year.
It was so cool to meet him, because he lived like 2 blocks away from the
dojo. You were around for that.
Yeah. I went Newaza with him. He's so nice. Like, of course, he's gonna kill me.
Nice guy.
On the ground, but he'll let me work on my stuff, and I'll go stand up with him. He'll go hard standing up. Yeah.
He came in. He's like, "Hey, I actually live 2 blocks away. Like, you guys do judo here?" I'm like, "Yeah, come on in."
Such a nice guy.
Judo. Yeah, he did some Newaza, and then he invited me to Marcelo. He's like, "Come on by to Marcelo's." So I went for a couple weeks.
Nice. Marcelo's is in Manhattan too.
Yeah. It's, on 30-something Street.
I see.
20. Yeah, it's pretty close.
Also,
they're
it's
all
clustered
in
in Midtown.
Certain radius. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So in Bernardo, like you even showed up on his instructions. I remember.
Yeah. So I'm doing like Judo Fanatics and BJJ Fanatics, and in between that time, from my purple belt with Danaher, one of my Judo students got a BJJ black belt, and he gave me my brown, and that's kind of how it is. And
I see that. So that's when you got. So before, so it was like between Danaher and Bernardo, you got your brown belt.
I did.
Yeah. Did you?
But it wasn't a result of like me going to a school and training for the summer or training for X amount of time. It was one of those things. One of my guys got a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and then he gave me. It was one of those guys. Yeah.
So I mean, you are plugged into the community and all, and everyone knew you and that kind of situation.
And because we do judo at the dojo, and that's what we're known for. Like a lot of jiu-jitsu guys would come all the time. People would come in. Hey, I'm from out of town. Like I'm a BJJ guy. I saw your video on YouTube. Can I do jiu-jitsu? Or hey, I'm training for this thing. I'm a purple belt. I'm a black belt. And so people are always dropping by with jiu-jitsu experience.
Right.
And during that time period, when people would come by, pre-COVID and everything, it was a great opportunity for my judo guys to do some and we do a lot of Newaza at the dojo, as you know.
Right.
So like these guys would come in, and my guys would be able to work out with them on the ground and work out with them on standing and things like this. It's a great little synergistic thing. Yeah. Good relationship.
Did you ever compete in any kind of BJJ competition?
Yeah, I did. I fought in 2 tournaments, and I did good. I won.
Which division? Like I know they divide up by like belts.
Yeah, so there was one tournament I fought. It was like the Good Fight.
Yeah.
It was like in New York, and like TGF it was called. And then it was like the advanced division, but they weren't like black belts, like
I see. It's like a local tournament. Yeah.
Advanced heavyweight division or something like that. And then I won that.
Nice.
They put me in the heavyweight division. I wasn't even that heavy. I was really big.
Yeah.
They gave me the option too. They were like, you could be in the under, 200 or something, but you would be in like an intermediate, or you could go a little bit more advanced.
But heavy. Yeah.
I see. And I was like, I'm going to go with the heavy guys.
This was with Danaher? Like the whole crew?
No, this was with Jojo Goran's team.
Okay.
So I was a blue belt, I think.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
I fought as a blue belt. I was fighting like purple belts, I think it was. It's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
I think that's an appropriate level. You just started out.
I remember my second match. I go out and put my hands on the guy, and I hear one of his friends yelling, "He does judo!"
Did he pull guard after?
No, the guy's like, "What?" And then I already had gone in for a harai.
Oh, you did all right. Nice.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Because that's what as soon as I heard that, I was like, "Oh man, this guy's gonna pull guard. Might as well go for something."
Right. Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
Cool. So
it was a fun experience.
Yeah. So you're like very much part of the New York BJJ scene with the Gracies, what'd you say?
Bernardo.
The Bernardo. Yeah. Of course. With who's Bernardo's teacher again? Marcelo,
Garcia.
okay.
You ever heard of him?
Yeah, I've heard of him, definitely. Marcelo,
Yeah,
yeah,
Marcelo, he's famous. And
nice.
yeah, it was an interesting, ride so far. And I learned a lot during that time period. And like I said, a lot of jiu-jitsu guys come through my dojo.
Right.
So it's perfect. We have a jiu-jitsu brown belt now on the mat with us. This guy Joe, he's great.
Nice.
And now
Yeah.
Brian Glick, we haven't talked
Right.
about him. He was one of Danaher's first black belts ever. And he is, I think like Gary Tonin wrote a post like he's one of the best black belts ever in this world that no one really knows because he's never competed.
So he's the, for those who watch Shintaro's videos, he frequently shows up on Shintaro's videos, and they train still like they're in a kind of pod together.
Yes.
Yeah.
So even during the pandemic, like we were in our little quarantine bubble situation, and I really trust him because right, he's a great guy, and I'm in my little bubble, and I'm very, very diligent and vigilant with the mask and stuff. So we were exchanging privates. And
Nice.
this goes back way long too. Like during the course of this whole experience that I've been telling you about,
Right.
we'll every now and then meet up at the New York Athletic Club, and I'll teach him judo for an hour, and he teaches me jiu-jitsu for an hour. So we've been exchanging this kind of a thing, and we've been working out together for years and years and years. So that like always added to my jiu-jitsu. And if I had a question, this guy is just such a jiu-jitsu savant, right? So it's like if I had any question, he could just clarify it. He was super concise. He was super eloquent, like all this stuff about him. He's just an incredible teacher. And, I hope he feels the same way about my judo. And I've been teaching him judo for a little while too.
Right.
And, he's had other judo gurus as well, right?
Yeah.
Like Gary had a hand in teaching him, and Tamok and all these
Nice.
guys. But yeah, that's a long relationship. And right now, like I'm kind of getting into it too. Like we've been pretty consistent for the last 3 or 4 months. So my jiu-jitsu game has definitely been increasing.
You
right?
You think you're gonna try to get your black belt in BJJ too?
Yeah, if he wants to like reach out to me and just like, hey man, I think you're at a level where you're definitely deserving of a black belt. Here it is. I definitely won't say no to that, and I'm open to it. But it's like that's not my primary objective.
Right.
My primary objective is to choke George whenever I feel like choking him in the dojo, because his defense is so good.
Right.
And I just love learning the jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And I always tell my guys too, it's like, let not the belt be the end goal.
Right.
But let it be like a side effect of your learning. Right? Love to learn, love the process, love to come in, love to hang out with the guys, love to choke, armbar, whatever. Learning. All of a sudden your belt is darker and darker. Right. And that's kind of the mentality that I'm trying to have with it. Of course, it'll be nice.
Right.
It's like a marketable thing, right? It's
double black belts.
Coral, Judo, and, BJJ Black and Sambo. It's like, that's nice.
Yeah.
But it's really not on the forefront of my mind when I go in.
Yeah, we'll see what happens on that front. So
I don't want to be the guy that sees Brian once a week. It's like, what do I got to do for my black belt? Like, what do I need
yeah.
Do I need to learn the Berimbolo? Like, I don't want to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have a very open mind for BJJ. Not just an open mind. You are actually a student of the art, and so let's kind of go through your experience in BJJ and then contrast it to your judo experience. So, first and foremost, like, what do you think about BJJ as a judo practitioner? Like, what's the they're closely related, but there's definitely differences. So, how do you see it? Yeah.
So with judo, time in Newaza is very limited.
Right.
And there's a discrepancy in the way we train Newaza and judo versus how it's actually applied in competition. And I always talk about there's a martial arts judo and there's a sport judo, like Olympic sport judo. And it's very important to distinguish the two, because if you're looking at sport judo, you're playing judo or fighting judo under the rules of the IOC, the IJF.
Right.
Right. And if you're looking at it from a martial standpoint, it's like, okay, judo, morotegari, kataguruma, are those things still judo in a martial art standpoint? Yeah, they are. So the way we do judo in a martial setting is different from the way we do sport judo. But what we mostly see on the online, the highlight reels and all these killers on the mat, and the most marketable thing about it is the international IJF circuit.
Right.
So when we're watching that kind of judo and we're looking at the Newaza there, it's like you see people missing a throw, turtling on bottom, right? Missing a sumi, and then being in open guard, and then
kind of stopping.
having that transitional Newaza.
Yeah.
Right? And that's where it's at. But when you look at a practice, like a judo practice, and we're going into Newaza, all right, partner up and do Newaza, we bow, and then we just start Newaza. Right? Very rarely do you see the transitional side specifically trained. They did that in Jimmy Pedro.
I see. Yeah.
And that's why they had so much success with that.
Right.
So there's a big discrepancy there.
So in terms of Judo Newaza, like you think, I think it's safe to say you will definitely recommend BJJ to improve your Judo Newaza. So
yes and no.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, yes and no. Because if your goal is to do judo, compete judo successfully, right? What are the Newaza positions do you see in judo most often? Right? I go tomanage, I fail. Now the person's in open guard in the top position. Right? You have 5 seconds to improve position, or it's stop, go back up to your feet. So this idea of, okay, shin to shin, he goes there, de la hiva, that, go put him on his butt, berimbolo, all the stuff like that stuff just will never exist in judo because
there's not enough time
it takes to get into those scenarios, it's just too long. Like the referee will never allow it to go continue.
Right.
So spending a lot of time doing that is not very useful if you're trying to do judo and compete in judo and using BJJ to enhance that. Right? But stuff that you could do in BJJ, like attacking the back, right? If it's fast and it improves position and it keeps creating motion, like something like that could really, really benefit the judoka.
It's like quick guard passes or off the back attacks.
Even quick guard passes might not be useful because in judo, you don't get rewarded for passing the guard. Right? You get rewarded for passing the guard and pinning the person. Right? So as soon as the quick guard pass happens, the judo person can turn their back and give up their back because you don't lose points. Right.
I see.
Getting pinned, you'll lose points. Giving up your back, you don't lose points. So it's in the best interest when you do a quick X pass to just go to your stomach. Right. So now you're in this position. It's like, yes, you're giving up your back in sport judo, right? Oh, you're susceptible to the choke. But all you have to do is keep that position for 1, 2, 3, for 5 seconds. The ref's like, okay, done. Back up to your feet.
Right.
So it's in the best interest of judo people to fight that way and train that way. But will it make you a better martial arts practitioner, a judo practitioner?
Yeah.
That's a different story.
So in that, so for those judo practitioners, judokas who don't necessarily want to focus on the competition side of things, what do you think? How do you think they should approach BJJ? Because
I think they should learn BJJ, almost as a separate art, right?
Right. I see.
And it's very important because if you're looking at, for instance, like the pinning idea in judo, you hold them for 20 seconds and you win. Right? Simple as that.
Right.
But if I'm practicing with the goal of improving my groundwork, period, as an overall grapple, as a martial artist, pinning someone down for 20 seconds is nothing.
Right.
If we're doing a 5-minute round, I pin him 2 or 3 times. That's a good portion of the match that we literally did nothing. Right. So pin the position, pass the guard, pin the person, hold them for 10 seconds, and then transition to something else, or even look for submissions from the pinning position. Right? Judokas don't look for submissions from the pin position.
Right.
They just simply don't.
Yeah.
Because that's the end of the match when you pin them. Right? So you kind of have to look at it like that.
I see.
Because the rule sets really, really makes a difference. So if you're a judo person and you want to compete in judo and you want to learn guard passes, a lot of the guard passes are completely useless for judo people because it doesn't lead to a pin. It doesn't lead to anything that gets rewarded in terms of points.
Right.
So the over-under pass, or what Jimmy Pedro calls split the legs, that's the best because when you go for it, you pressure, you control the hips and the legs. While you're passing, as you're passing, the person is being prevented from going to their stomach.
Right.
Which leads
the hips.
to being, rewarded by osaikomi, by the pin.
Right.
So you're a judo guy. You want to do BJJ to improve your judo competition game. You go to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school. And if they're teaching over-under pass specifically, that's good. That'll help you. But if they're only doing quick passes, not really going to help you.
I see. So
Yeah.
you are a judo competitor as well as like you're a martial artist. So how did you approach BJJ? Like what did you try to get out of it, and like throughout your journey?
Well, this is the thing,
Yeah.
right? While I was competing, I had no knowledge of this stuff.
Mm.
I was just I was really clueless, and I wish I knew all the stuff, right, that I know
Right.
now.
Yeah.
And I wish I had someone, like me to kind of teach me some of this stuff when I was up and coming. I didn't. So for me, it was like, oh, jiu-jitsu guys are good at Newaza. I'm going to go do BJJ.
Right.
My Newaza is going to get better. Right? Oh, look at this ankle lock. I can't use that in judo anyway. I'm not going to learn it.
Right,
oh,
right.
Look at this thing that we do with the wrist. I can't use that in judo anyway. Right? Let me just try to learn the stuff that is semi
judo applicable.
Judo-ish.
Yeah.
And something that like I really liked was a knee cut pass.
But
it's like boom, knee cut pass, and then it's like people rolling onto their stomach,
right.
Never scoring from it. It was very frustrating.
Right.
And I never really made that connection until I went to Jimmy Pedro's, and Jimmy Pedro was obsessively making everybody train back attack juji and over under pass. Back attack juji, over under pass. Back attack juji, over under pass. Right?
Right.
It's like person drops Ippon Senagi, back attack juji. Person misses Sumigaeshi, over under pass.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay. Got it.
I see.
And then, you see guys like Bernardo Faria who specializes in the over-under pass. And then when he was coming to the dojo, I was like, Bernardo, please teach me that over-under pass.
Right.
And he's like, okay, if you teach me drop senagi.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, you got a deal,
Yeah. Nice.
So little by little, like it started shaping together.
I see.
And now I kind of have a good understanding of it. And I wish I had this understanding before. But, now I'm not a judo competitor. I do judo specifically for the martial side of it.
I see.
So you'll see even now in the dojo, you haven't been there in a while, but I'm doing a little bit more
on the nail
stuff.
Side.
That's even like the body lock stuff, the upper body lock, Greco-Roman throws. Like in judo, in sport judo, you can't connect your hands behind the person's back.
No bear hugs. Yeah.
No bear hugs, but we're doing it. We're learning it.
Nice.
And I specifically say you can't do this in competition, but it's good to know this stuff because we're trying to be grapplers. We're trying to be martial artists.
I see. So it's like the stuff we talked about in the how to find your own judo system. You're exposed to all of this, and then you internalize it, interpret it in your own way. Yeah. And then kind of try to be more expansive in your view on the
you have to loop it back to your own goals always. Right? And people say, hey, is jiu-jitsu good for self-defense? Yeah, a lot of it is. But it's not purely self-defense.
Right.
Because being in a Newaza position where you have the person's back, like that may not be the most conducive thing, right? If you're trying to defend yourself against multiple attackers.
Right.
Also, like, for instance, give you another example, like the deep half position, right? Really bad if you get punched in the face.
Right.
Can't really go for it, right? Deep half is not so good for that. Or even like the seated guard when one person's standing in like sort of a upright position looking for these fast passes and things like that, and you're in a seated guard, like if you get kicked in the face, not very good.
So your goal throughout your journey kind of changed. At first, you're a judo competitor, try to find stuff that you can apply to judo from BJJ. But as you become more of a teacher or martial artist, like you're focusing more on the martial side of things, and now you're really approaching BJJ as an art. You're trying to learn it more as in a holistic way, I guess, not just like something you can use for judo. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, so that's what's going on. Hey, man. How are you? Yeah, we have a leak in the house, so we got a plumber coming in.
Oh, okay. We'll cut that out. Hold on. We'll just wait.
It's okay. It's all right.
Yeah.
We don't need to cut it. It's natural. Try to be as authentic as possible on the Higashi and Peter show.
Yeah. Right? Well, all right. So let's see.
Sometimes your pipes leak, yo.
Yeah, I mean, we don't. It's it's a pandemic situation. We don't have a dedicated studio or anything like that. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So now let's flip the script and then I'm curious about what you think about how BJJ people can approach judo. Like, I think a lot of times A lot of times they just kind of say, oh, I don't really learn about takedowns at my BJJ school. Can I just show up to judo? Like I see that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, you can, but you need a very educated instructor to be able to do this.
Right.
Right. And it's the same idea with the judo, with the BJJ. On the reverse side, I actually made a DVD about this called Low Risk Judo for BJJ Players. Commonly, you go into a judo school and it's like, hey, I'm here to do judo to help my BJJ game. The instructor goes, okay, let me show you a turn throw.
Right.
Probably one of the worst things you could start with.
Because, can you elaborate? Yeah. Or learning curve. Yeah.
Takes a very long time. Once you get your turn throws very, very powerful and skillful, it takes a very long time to get there. Yeah. The more powerful it is, the harder it is to stop.
Right.
But in the beginning phases of learning it, it is not powerful at all because it's not very intuitive. And then every time you go for it, the consequences are high because you're giving up your back. You're putting yourself in bad position every single time you go for it.
Right.
So you really shouldn't start by trying to learn these massive turn throws because they're not really going to help you in your game.
Right. So it's the same way like how you approached BJJ as a judo competitor. If you want to improve your takedown because you want to become a better BJJ competitor, you have to look for those things that actually apply better. Yeah.
And if you look at any dojo, they're probably going to teach you osotogari first.
Right.
They're going to teach you osotogari in an upright position, which you'll see in judo now more because there's no more leg grabs because, like we talked about, Olympic judo, sport judo, doesn't allow leg grabs. When you're not allowed to do any leg grabs, you're going to be a little bit more upright. And if any sort of negative judo where you're not actually going to throw somebody gets penalized, you're going to be more upright because you want your hips closer to be as offensive as possible.
Right.
So if you're learning judo and osotogari in that context, and now you're trying to bring it back to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, everybody shoots in on the legs, so their defense is a lot lower, right? They don't get penalized for negative judo or negative throwing where you're going away from the technique, not offensively throwing somebody. Naturally, you're going to have people who are just trying to strip the hands off, back down, and then keeping their hips low. That osotogari that you learn in judo, not going to work.
Right.
So you need an instructor with the knowledge to be able to say, okay, how do you apply this in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Some people can just sort of analytically make this kind of a connection right off the bat. How can I take this osotogari? How is this applicable to my Jiu-Jitsu style?
I see.
Some people could do that. Most people cannot. I was never able to do this, right? So now all of a sudden, you can ask your instructors, like, does this going to work? Is this going to work in Jiu-Jitsu? And then if the judo teacher says, yeah, of course it's going to work in Jiu-Jitsu, just do it like this.
Right.
Then maybe the guy doesn't know.
Right.
Because you just don't know what you don't know.
So it has to be nuanced. Yeah.
Right. It has to be specific.
Yeah.
Right. And if your Jiu-Jitsu game every single time is being in bottom position, sweep, get the points, pass, get the points, and now work from side control, and that's your entire game. Going for a big turn throw is not going to help you in the least bit.
Right.
Because you want to be in that bottom open guard position. Right? So now you need to learn a tomonage sumigeishi where you put yourself in that position. When you fail the technique, then now all of a sudden you could go into your position. Right?
I guess that's a good way to do it because, if you just learn a turn throw as a BJJ player, and you might get frustrated. You might just give up the whole thing about learning judo altogether.
Yeah, and I made this mistake many times.
Yeah.
Right, Jiu-Jitsu guy comes in, hey, I want to learn this thing, judo to help improve my takedown game. And I'm like, okay, let's start with grip fighting and let's start with a nice little ogoshi situation.
Right.
And not knowing, at the time, I never really made that connection between this might not be effective for the people who are trying to do it in their own context. Because it's a different context. And if you're unfamiliar with BJJ, how are you going to be able to make these two things work together?
So that
it's the same idea as like the wrestler that comes in and goes, I want to work on my throws.
Right.
I don't know. There's no Greco-Roman places, no freestyle places. I just know collegiate wrestling. I want to learn how to throw somebody. Can you show me? Okay, come on in. Here's how to do a taitoshi with 2 hands on the lapel. It's like there's no lapels in wrestling.
Right.
How do you account for that? Oh, just go for an underhook and a wrist. Okay, is it that simple? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Depends on the level the guy's wrestling.
Right.
If you don't know wrestling, you're not really going to be able to help them.
Right. So, So it's a very important for the instructor to know a lot of these other arts too, because you want to help out other practitioners too that are interested in
If
judo.
that's something that the judo instructor wants to do, then it's
Yeah.
important for them to know.
Right.
But some judo instructors are like, hey man, I do judo, I teach judo, that's it. In judo, you can do this, you can't do that, and this is how we live and die by it.
Right.
We're doing this judo, right? And if that's them, that's God bless them. They're allowed to do that. That's their right.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a jiu-jitsu guy, I want to learn stand-up. Okay, you could learn our judo, that's it.
Right.
Some people are like this.
So nowadays, now knowing what you know now, when the BJJ guy comes in, is like, hey, I want a better takedown game for my BJJ. What do you usually show for the first time?
Well, so this is general. So I had this happen to me maybe 3 weeks ago too.
Right.
A guy who wants to do a private, and then the first thing I ask is, what belt are you in jiu-jitsu, and what is your jiu-jitsu game?
Right. Oh, so you try to personally tailor it. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to personally tailor, especially if it's private.
Right.
Group setting, it's different because it's like, I'm going to teach this during class. I don't have time to figure out what you do and differentiate the instructions just for you if you're only here for one class.
Right.
It's not fair to the Peter Hughes that come 3 times a week,
Yeah.
or the George that comes 4 times a week, who I'm emotionally and just overall invested in. I care about them.
Right.
So the guy that comes in for a group class, let me pay my mat fee and then let's try it once. Hey, sensei, I know this is a group class, but can you dedicate your entire session to me and making my jiu-jitsu better? I'm like, get out of here with that. No way.
Right.
I'm not going to help that person generally.
Right.
I'll give them maybe 1 or 2 things. That's it. They can take it or leave it. Maybe they can do something with that information, but it's not really on the forefront of my priority list.
Right. What I want.
Private lesson is different, right? Because it's me and him. And it'll always start with a conversation. What belt are you and what's your jiu-jitsu game?
Mm-hmm. So what, and then you go from maybe you will show Sumigaeshi and Tomoe Nage first, and you go from there.
Potentially.
Yeah.
So the other day I asked this question to this guy. I say, hey, what are some of your things that you're successful on your feet? What are some of the things you feel comfortable doing? And what are some of your issues? Issue number 1 was there's a lot of wrestlers in my jiu-jitsu school. They take me down.
Right.
What am I doing wrong? All right, let's grip fight a little bit. And then he was going for the lapel with his lead leg, which means he's not really protecting his lead leg. And a wrestler, that's a wrestler's dream, to be able to duck and shoot, go under the arms, because arms are the first line of defense.
Right.
Right? So that was number 1. So it's like, hey, don't reach with your lead leg, reach with your other hand, which happens to be the left hand. Right. Punch the hand in. Now your lead arm is protecting your lead leg. Let's start off with that. What are some of the successful throws that you've been hitting? What sort of side combination that you showed me last time that has been really working well for me? How can we diversify on that? And he had a Muay Thai experience, so he's used to some of these foot sweeps. He's used to the movement of the Sasai.
I see.
So I said, okay, you put Sasai and Dayashi together, it'll work really well for you. But if the jiu-jitsu guy is crouched down real low, it's going to be very difficult. So let's work a snap down. Let's work the Sasai, let's work the Dayashi, and then now you could start really developing your technique.
I see.
Yeah.
That's this kind of systematic approaches. I think it's very important. So let's switch gears and let's kind of talk about. So having gone through all, trained with all these like premier BJJ schools from around New York City, what are some of the things you think judo, especially in the United States, can learn from their success of these BJJ schools?
I think the barrier of entry is very different from judo and jiu-jitsu, and the learning curve is different.
Right.
When you're starting in judo, the impact is really high, and when you learn osotogari, the consequences are real if you fall wrong or reap the knee the wrong way. Jiu-jitsu, you learn closed guard, open in the closed guard, consequences low. Anyone and everyone can potentially do it.
Right.
So the barrier of entry is a lot different. And I think that's one of the really important pieces. And because of the nature of the technique with judo, there's a lot of balance, coordination, and force that goes behind it. Not everyone can do it right away. And like I said, the consequences are high. In jiu-jitsu, it's very, very different. Right. People, it's a little bit slower. The pace is different. So now when you're looking at something like the simple arm bar, right, you're looking at a hinge joint, right, lever arm, fulcrum, applying force, and then the elbow goes in the opposite direction. Right. It's a lot more intuitive. And people, when they learn this kind of a stuff, it's much more easier to explain So the pedagogical side, when people explain these things, they have a much more eloquent way of presenting this information, which is a lot more easily digestible for the person actually learning it. As opposed to judo, it's like stand on one leg, do this, do that, keep your balance, keep your core tight, reap this knee, the person has to fall, do kemi, blah, blah, blah. Okay, try it. It's kind of hard. Okay, now do it live. Right? When was the first time you hit an osotogari in live after you learned it?
Yeah, because I remember like when I first learned judo throws in Korea, like doing all these uchikomis, and when they first threw me into even nagekomis, I was kind of scared. Like I didn't know.
Very scary.
Yeah, it's just
getting launched.
There are so many. You're throwing the whole body, and like you said, there are multiple. It's not just one joint that you're focusing on. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, and think about how long it takes, right? Like I just said, osotogari from the time you learn to actually hitting it live, versus thinking about actually learning how to open a closed guard and actually being able to do it live. Probably the same day if you're like relatively athletic.
Yeah.
But humans are good on staying on their feet and they're athletic. You play every single sport, basketball, baseball, football. The first and foremost rule is stay on your feet. Right. So a good athlete comes in, they're used to taking things
regaining balance.
Reading and keeping the balance and keeping the knees bent and being strong, right? Anybody and everybody could bench, right?
Yeah.
Keep the person away, right? It's hard to throw somebody.
Right.
Open closed guard, and you've never done closed guard before, and now a lot easier.
And that kind of immediate feedback.
Yeah, immediate feedback. And what's the consequences? Someone opening your guard. You opened my guard.
Right.
What's the consequence of someone slamming you osotogari when you just learned the break fall?
Huge.
Yeah. Huge. They're not coming back after that.
So what are some of the specific things that you've done to lower this barrier of entry for judo?
I still do teach osotogari sometimes, right? Depends on, right? I don't let these guys do live, randori live. And I explain to them up front. Right, I try to manage their expectations. Like, hey, we're teaching you osotogari. This is how you do it. It's not going to work yet. I guarantee you, it's not going to take a long time to actually do this on somebody, because there's a lot of, skills before you're going to be able to do it on a resisting opponent. First and foremost, you have to be able to make the shape of this throw. Second, you have to throw a cooperating opponent, and then only after you master those two, then can you graduate to throwing a resisting opponent. That's months from now.
Right.
And once I tell them that, they're like, I have to be able to make the shape of the throw first. Because if you show them osotogari, and if they expect to be able to do it, they're not going to be able to do it. I guarantee it.
Right.
On a resisting person. They're just not. So
manage the expectation.
Expectations, be upfront with it. Does this work in live? Can I throw somebody right now with it? No, you can't.
Right.
You can't. Not for a while.
Yeah. And another thing is, that kind of immediate feedback is also important to, keep the students engaged. How do you structure that or like account for that? Yeah.
Well, so, like if they're learning osotogari, it's like, hey, I'm cooperating. I'm letting you throw me. Just remember, right? Like we're going to go and then we get taken down and then, hey, good job.
Right.
Kind of like this, right? And then having someone experienced to be able to guide them through it. It's like, what am I doing wrong? And having the person who knows, right? Most common thing in osotogari, when you're going into osotogari, you pull yourself in this direction. Inadvertently, you're taking the other person and pulling them in the wrong direction. So I'm pulling myself over here.
Yeah.
Pull. Person lean in the opposite direction. And then you're trying to throw them that way? Right? That's a very, very common mistake that 90% of people make as a beginner.
Right.
If the person teaching that technique doesn't even know that, then it's like, all right, now you're behind. Right? The person's not going to learn it.
Right.
So having students know, right, is huge. And like I always talk about, man, you don't know what you don't know. And that's the most difficult thing about martial arts, I think. It's getting a little bit more philosophical, right?
Right.
And it's kind of like looping back to the BJJ stuff. Like I always thought, Judo Newaza is great. Until you see some of these BJJ guys doing Newaza, and you're like, oh, that's like a very good version of the Judo Newaza over there,
More
you just don't know what you don't know, right?
Right. I see. All right. So then, that kind of stuff, and it's interesting that I think you told me that, I forget who, but like a BJJ school, like they don't even let white belts or students do live rounds until like way into their game or something.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I mean, live randori is like everyone who does judo think like, oh, that's the golden cornerstone of judo. Why would you do judo without doing randori? It just doesn't make sense. And that's coming from the perspective of the people who've survived already. So there's survivorship bias there.
Yeah.
Like, oh, if you can't handle randori, you don't deserve to be on this mat. It's like, man, but you got lucky. You never got injured. You had good people. Maybe you were athletic, right? You shouldn't have that kind of expectation for everybody. Like everyone's not the same, right? The 45-year-old accountant that sits on the couch all day or whatever it is at a desk all day, that guy should have the ability to learn judo in a safe way without you being like, oh, you got to do randori. You got to get slammed. Right. And I think that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu.
I see.
Anyone can do it, right?
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not saying anyone can do it at the highest level. I'm not saying that. But the barrier of entry is very low.
Yeah. We talked about this in other episodes, but that's kind of how do you make it in judo? It means that's different for everyone. And, we shouldn't be
different from everyone,
condescending to people who may not be able to compete or do live rounds as much as you can. Yeah.
Also, on the topic of learning what judo can learn from BJJ, BJJ is a marketing machine.
Right.
Think about all the isms in BJJ, that it's just really penetrated all the martial arts world.
Right.
90% of fights end up on the ground.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's some truth to that.
Yeah.
Right? But
they
what percentage of fights, what percentage of fights is one-on-one?
Yeah.
Think about that in a self-defense setting.
Right.
What percentage of fights is multiple person versus one person? In that case, you go to the ground, you're going to get stomped.
Yeah.
Right? It's a marketing machine. And there's nothing wrong with that. Right? It's a marketable sport, marketable martial art. They should be. Right? If you look at the BJJ world, it's like you could have a blue belt masters 3 division, and that person gets on the podium in front of this beautiful thing, and then they get to put it on Instagram and feel good about it, and they have a lot of support and love from each other, like, hey, congratulations, you're doing amazing. Judo, you could win a regional tournament on the Northeast, a D-level, national level thing, the Liberty Belt Championship. You're standing on milk crates. In a dingy gym somewhere, in like a high school gym that they rented out, and then the volleyball team's like rolling in, and judo tournament cake all day, and the jiu-jitsu guys really thought this part through.
Right.
You don't need a regulation mat size in order to do a full-blown event. Like you don't need that type of space.
Right.
Jiu-jitsu's got it skilled. It's like, okay, 10 matches going at once.
Right.
What about weigh-ins? It's kind of a pain in the ass to do weigh-ins. You step on the scale, boom, weights are good, go on the mat, compete, right? At 2:30, you're competing, you do it, you could go have beers with your buddy, you could have dinner with your friends.
Right.
Judo tournament is not like that.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a good product. The judo tournament is not a good product. The local judo tournament is not any way, shape, or form a good product.
So it's not just
the
about...
business side is so much more refined in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world. And that's something that comes from... I mean, there's money in the sport now because it's such a fast-growing sport.
Yeah. It's crazy
judo
how...
can learn from this. And the judo people are not really taking on these ideas. And why can't we step on the scale before we go in so we don't have to do morning weigh-ins?
Right.
Why can't we? Give a 5-pound allowance.
That's the dull.
Why can't we fight in a smaller mat space so we could have more matches going on at once?
That's the most dull part of the judo competition, kind of weigh in and then waiting around. Yeah.
Spend $1,000 for a nice backdrop so they could put something on Instagram after they get a medal.
Right.
Why can't we? We can. We just don't do it because no one cares enough to do it. And, people do something a certain way long enough. They're like, this is the way it's always been done. And this is the way it's always going to be. And, Jiu-Jitsu doesn't have that kind of a history in the United States. So it's all new. It's all young people. Not all young people. There's a lot of young people. A lot of people who are coming into this world and saying, hey, there's an opportunity here. We're smart. We're capable. It's a marketable thing. There's money in it. We're going to go for it. As opposed to you have the hobbyist judo guys who've been doing it, who work a 9 to 5, go run a dojo. Always done this way. Always will be this way.
Right.
right? Because they have that history,
Yeah.
that tradition.
Man, it is impressive how BJJ came into the spotlight and became mainstream so quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, even like the first UFC was
Yeah.
a thing, right?
Right. Like
Brazilian
it
Jiu-Jitsu
was to
versus the
showcase.
world. Showcase
Yeah.
Brazilian
Yeah.
Jiu-Jitsu. That was the whole thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. I loved it.
Yeah.
I watched it with great
Yeah.
sense of pride because I did Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. I was like, Jiu-Jitsu's on the map.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
This is incredible. And I was a fan. I was a
Yeah.
fan. I love that. You know, my mom hated it because she doesn't like violence.
Right.
I had the cassette tape, and I would watch it with my dad. Like, be like, "Yo, be on the lookout for your mother." We're like hiding and watching this thing. People, Henzo punching people in the face. Like, like loving it. I was like a little kid.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't have watched it as a little kid, but I did. Right?
So I think it's maybe because in other countries, we'll probably dedicate another episode for this, but in other countries, it's like a lot of it is like judo is an Olympic sport. It's a state sponsor, like it's in the education system and whatnot. So they didn't have
it's different. I'm not saying judo's all bad. I'm not saying that at all.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. It's a state sponsored. They have the pinnacle, right? It's like the Olympics. That's a huge deal.
Yeah.
It's an Olympic sport.
Right.
But in terms of like a business standpoint, a commercial standpoint in the United States, I think there's a lot of places to be improved upon. And I think we got to borrow and learn from BJJ because they're doing a great job.
Yeah.
They're doing a great job, in Newaza. It's Newaza, right?
Yeah.
Newaza means ground lying techniques.
Yeah.
So great Newaza, great
Marketing.
business sense, marketing, like all those things judo could learn from them.
Yeah.
We can't do this thing of like, oh, it's judo guys, we've been this way, and we gotta innovate, we gotta evolve, we gotta learn.
Because the situation in the States especially is different for judo. Like unlike other like France, Japan, Korea, Russia. Yeah. They have a different.
Judo's too injury prone. It's too high impact. It's too painful. It's too risky.
Yeah.
How can you take those things away? My dojo, I don't let people do Tani Atoshi. How can you take out Tani Atoshi? It's like my guys do all right. We don't do Tani Atoshi in the dojo. Well, black belts can do it.
Yeah.
Right?
But
but after like the 37th knee injury, it's like, all right, no more Tani Atoshi, please.
Right.
No more. Stop that stuff. Right? Like, how can you take out a technique from the? You gotta learn, man.
Yeah.
You gotta change your. You gotta keep your mind open because you don't know what you don't know. Right. That's like my theory and philosophy on life.
Yeah.
Some people love what they know, and that's all they can love, and some people love what they don't know, but you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
That's the freaking thing. That's the philosophical thing about martial arts. And that's different from sport because sport, it's another bag of things.
It's another animal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this, it's whole this, we shouldn't, like your experience at BJJ and Judo, we can all learn from each other.
Yeah.
And to make us both better. And I think this dichotomy, like, BJJ versus Judo, it's, I honestly used to look up those videos too because I thought it was really fun to watch, but now
it's baiting.
It's exactly. It's not really the real picture and then the purpose, but
it's never the real picture. It's never the real picture, and I think it's silly because you see this martial art versus that martial art, and I look at it and I'm like, these people aren't even in the same weight class. Yeah, I saw one, man. It was like Kung Fu versus MMA, and the MMA fighter had 60 pounds on the guy, and I'm like, this is not a fair fight. How is this fair in any way? Right. At least keep them in the same weight class. Do weigh-ins. Yeah. At least have like an age range thing. Right. Like, this master is like 54 years old going against a 26-year-old like specimen. Like, well, how is this fair? Yeah. It's like Judo versus BJJ doing BJJ rules. The BJJ guy's gonna win. Judo versus BJJ Judo rules. Judo guy's gonna win. Given that they're in the same weight class, they have the same amount of skill level in their respective sports and all this stuff. Yeah. Right? There's just too many variables to know. But it sells, right? It's you get the views. It's like when a judo guy meets a karate guy on the street in the back alley of the Compton. What happens next? Yeah.
So then. But we had to remember that there's a whole context around it, and we gotta try to learn from each other, and and fascinating stories from the BJJ BJJ circuit in New York City.
Yep.
So I think it's a good time to, good place to end the episode. Anything to add for the
Yeah, I
audience?
just hope I didn't say anything too controversial. I know because
Yeah.
it's like there's a little bit of history between the judo and the Brazilian jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
and I know jiu-jitsu is evolving really fast, and people are now saying, "Hey, this is not Brazilian jiu-jitsu anymore." People are
Right.
saying this is American jiu-jitsu. You ever heard of this little
Yeah.
movement?
Yeah,
Right?
I have. Yeah. Yeah.
Same with judo. People are
Yeah.
saying this is not Japanese judo. This is freestyle judo.
Yeah.
Some people
They
say
make it-
BJJ is just Kosen judo.
Yeah.
And
Right.
really, at the end of the day, we're all martial artists. We got to stick together.
Yeah.
Can't keep putting each other down, and we all have to have an open mind. And we all have to learn and evolve together, and that's what it's about.
Yeah.
And it's great. I loving it, and I just got to say thank you. Shout out to Brian Glick who
Yeah.
is teaching me Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I love our sessions, and
Yeah.
I hope to make his judo spectacular too.
Right.
Don't sleep on his judo's amazing.
Nice.
Right.
So I love
glad
to. I've
yeah.
never met him before yet. So
He's great.
Yeah,
he's great.
I'd love to. Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you guys for listening.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, you can reach out to me on Instagram. Please follow my YouTube channel and all this stuff. And you could also find Peter. Right? Peter's Instagram is super personal Instagram with him and his wife and
Yeah, well, I mean,
kissing babies and not even like that martial artsy, but go find him, go bother him, go stalk him.
Yeah, yeah. I love to hear it from you guys. I try to, provide as much as I can to the community. And thanks for listening, guys. And
Thank you.
stay tuned for the next episode.